So, welcome back to another episode. And today, we've got a pile of controllers out. We have controllers from all the generations of video games dating back to the NES and up. And it's crazy. We just wanted to talk about some of our favorite controllers. Now, you guys out there probably have a controller that you played with over the years that has a special meaning for you, or you just like the way it controlled, you just like where the buttons were located, all that kind of stuff. So definitely leave a video response, a comment below of what your favorite controller is. Now, me and Rob are going to say what our favorite controllers are at the end, and we haven't told each other. This is like our closest secret here. I don't even know what yours is. You say, yeah.
Mine's gonna be a bit of a fun little mystery because it's one that I don't know if he's heard of. I don't know if most of you have heard of, but it's one that I really like, and I'll explain why later. But that's for later.
So yeah, what we thought we'd do is just kind of go through some of these controllers and talk about some of our memories with them and kind of what they meant to us at the time. And why don't we start at the beginning? I know where you want to start at.
Well, now, if we're gonna go way back, I mean, gaming started for old folks like us.
Yeah.
It started with a joystick that had one button on the top in the old Atari days, or there was a button just to the side, and but we're talking controllers, not joysticks. Yeah. So the first generation of gaming consoles, starting in the '80s, which is when we went from those old joysticks to what we now consider gaming controllers. There were two major contenders back then. Of course, there was your NES, and now this is to me the classic, the original. It was such a simple but efficient design.
Yeah.
I mean, you had your directions, you had two buttons, and you had your select and start. I mean, it was really, and it's all you needed.
Yeah, it's funny with this though. I remember the very first time I was playing Super Mario Bros. 1, I didn't even understand how to use the D-pad. It was weird. I remember just falling. I was like, what am I supposed to be doing?
Well, yeah, because we were also used to
controller.
This,
yeah, and from the arcades.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, exactly.
So putting the thumbs down. Of course, now I've gotten so used to having many years played this, it immediately falls into that resting on the middle fingers, the fingers on the top, the indexes, and the thumbs on the buttons. And this was the controller that gave us A for jump and B for shoot. Every platformer ever made on that system, A was jump, B was shoot. It was universal. It was unanimous. It was the standard for gaming for a very long time. Now, on the other hand, you had your Master System that was the direct competition to the NES. But now, I went over once to a guy named, I can't remember his last name, Jamie, in grade 6. And he was the first guy that had a Master System I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And I played R-Type, and I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that they were 1 and 2, and the start button was button number 1. I was like,
yeah, they messed up from the NES.
And the pause was actually on the Master System machine.
Yes, yeah.
I couldn't fathom it. Because I was so used to Nintendo. But a very similar design. Your D-pad is square.
Yeah.
And then this thing,
this actually has a little joystick on it, actually, to mimic the arcade experience. It's very small and a little bit quirky, but too funny. Very nostalgic, that's for sure. So get these out of the way.
Let's move them along. Now, then we started to enter into the 16-bit era, and the first major contender in that, of course, had to be our friend, the Genesis controller. Now, okay, you know what? I've got to take a minute and talk about this, okay? People our age and of our generation will remember that if you played multiplayer games, especially when multi-taps were out, the dreaded controller squid. The cords would always wind around each other, you're passing them back and forth, and by the end of the game, you just hold up this mass of cables. I've got a photograph that I should send you guys later, and I'll post it that's online, of holding this massive controllers hanging from the controller squid from when I first set up my man cave in my place a couple places ago. And it's just so that we had to do this because
I'm gonna get killed here.
But anyway, the controller pile, the Genesis. 16-bit gaming started with this massive monster. I mean, you compare it to the last generation of gaming.
I love it.
It's humongous.
I talked about that in the Genesis episode, how big the controller, like, that was my big thing when I opened it up this morning. I'm like, holy shit, this is huge. Yeah.
And added a third button, which for all of a sudden now, well, which one's jump shoot? I don't know. So, I mean, there was and they reversed A and B.
Yeah.
But this started the next generation of gaming, and honestly, another really well comfortable, no sharp corners poking you in the hands.
Yeah.
Again, an elegant but really good design. Sega really knew what they were doing. Their hardware division was really good. So they also had a 6-button variety of that came out later.
And we tried looking for it somewhere in the squid pile. Yeah.
in the 16-bit era, following the Genesis, there was the TurboGrafx, which had a very similar to the original NES and Master System design, although they had TurboFire switches on them.
Yeah, this is actually, I think, for the core graphics or something like that. TurboGrafx one's all packed away, too.
They were pretty much the same thing with different color schemes. But, and that's, so the Turbo series of games from NEC all had very similar controllers as well. So we're seeing the standard kind of continuing.
Yeah, not much has changed there too much.
Until Nintendo, and they really were revolutionary a lot of the time. The Super Nintendo controller came out, and my personal preference,
Oh, yes.
the Super Famicom. And the only difference being these 4 buttons and some of the coloration. But I mean, look how I like the bright colors on this. Maybe
We've
it's
talked
just
about it before.
my simple mind. But yeah, I always loved the bright colors.
We talked about this before. I love
But
it.
2 extra buttons on the face and the introduction of the shoulder buttons.
Yeah.
So, and again, a rounded shape, more comfortable in the hand, so you didn't get those gouges when
Remember
you were
that? And at the
intensely
time, it was
playing.
like, oh my god, there's 8 buttons.
Oh, it was so confusing. The first time I played Super Mario World, I just was... Okay, this one jumps, this one does what, and he spins, and...
Yeah, I know. It
was
was cool.
very
But
confused,
that was
but-
part of the experience, right? Yeah, I like that.
So, I mean, over the years, they've added buttons, they've changed the shape. There was...
we got a TurboGrafx controller, but we'll get it out of the way because it's...
that's the arcade stick.
Yeah, pretty
So,
cool.
you know, very cool. But again, a lot of the older systems were trying to bring the arcade experience home. So almost every system had their own arcade stick so that you could feel like you were playing the arcade games. Which is kind of neat.
I
But
like
not
that
what
one,
we're looking
yeah.
at.
I like
Yes. Now, we start edging towards the 32-bit generation at this because we
Yeah.
had TurboGrafx, Genesis, and Super NES.
Yeah, and then we got the 3DO, and I'll just pull out the 3DO one here. I'm not a huge fan of the 3DO. I got it Christmas morning, and here's one of them. Yeah, and you actually had this is what's funny. Since the actual machine, the Gold Star machine for the 3DO, only has one controller port, you actually have to put your second controller into the first controller.
Oh, that's weird.
It was really annoying. You could buy an adapter. Which I did, but never liked that controller. Never been a fan of it.
Yeah, I've never spent much time playing with that one.
Yeah.
either.
And then
So moving on into the 32-bit era, that is about when Nintendo ticked off Sony, and Sega stepped up to their next generation. So we'll start with the Sega ones, and that was the Sega Saturn.
Yeah.
And
I like
this
this
is the
controller.
import one, but it's the same physical design.
Yeah.
And it was a really nice, like the 6-button Genesis, a little more ergonomic, a little more rounded, had the trigger buttons and the 6 face buttons, but a very simple but good design. It was easy to play.
it was very nice. It's basically the Genesis controller with the six buttons on. It's basically a design of that.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Now, the North American one
perfect.
was black and the shoulder buttons were a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But basically the same design and the same shape.
Yeah.
Now, Sony, on the other hand, and this is funny because later we're going to show you a little comparison of all of their generations, but Sony made this thing. Now, when the PS1 first came out, it was kind of weird because Sony had never really tipped a hat in the ring of game consoles.
Yeah.
And I remember when it first came out, I didn't like the idea of it at all.
Well, Sony was making consoles. So what the hell are they doing?
And I saw the demo one in Toys R Us with Battle Arena Toshinden on it, and I just was, the controller to me seemed weird and
Can I
clunky.
say, you know what bothered me when I first saw it? This sounds so funny to say, but being a kid, I was like, or a younger guy, I was like, what the hell is this? Isn't connected in the middle?
Yes.
This is not going to work right. I remember thinking that.
Yes,
Remember
that was exactly it when I hit the Toys R Us, the demo one. So I was like, that's just not right.
Yeah.
And it was
And then the extra 4 buttons up here. I was like, what?
so confusing.
Yeah.
Trying to play games on this at first was really difficult to adapt to, but then
It's unique and new.
But
That's
then-
the thing. Yeah, it was unique and new.
we started playing a lot of Street Fighter. We'll talk about that another time, but this became my most comfortable controller in time. It took a long time to get used to.
I love it.
But from there, the PlayStation 1 ended up also adding a couple of analog sticks, which became very handy for playing their games. I really liked it. That became so comfortable and really superseded this.
And they never changed the design.
No,
I don't think they should.
And to be honest, look at it. Because there's your PS2 and there's your PS3, and honestly, it's almost a perfect design.
I was trying to get them all together. I'm like, which is which again? You'd actually kind of forget because it's all exactly pretty much the same.
The only difference is, for the newest one, you don't have to deal with this crap.
Jesus Christ.
Nice and wireless. It's easy. See? I love
Rob
it.
Man's going crazy.
I'm nuts.
And then here, and I remember going to Rob's place, and he had a Sega Saturn, and he had this.
Well, that's right. This was the pack-in controller for Nights into Dreams, and it had this awesome analog bubble as opposed to a stick. but it was weird, a weird concept at first, but it's really comfortable to use.
Yeah.
Really, but just huge. Look at the size of this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a monster, but it fits well and it works.
I was
well.
fascinated when you were playing the game. I was like, wow, this is really cool. But I don't know. I liked it. I liked this, but I didn't like it.
Well, we were so unused to this kind of
It was
thing.
new.
At the
It was a
time.
new concept, and
Yeah.
that was a game that was in 3D, and it was like trying to wrap your head around that. You know, as we talked about, when we saw Mario 64, that was like, wow. But this was the first initials into that. You know, so very, very interesting. Yeah. And then I think this is funny. I think this is really funny. Look at this thing. It's funny, it's nostalgic, but look how huge this is, and with all the add-ons, and I don't even know how you
have to push the little button in the back of the controller to drop
there we
that
go.
out. A rumble pack with a slot for a memory card, because they only had the one in there.
But no, that we have to talk. Yeah, we've talked about it on our Mario 64 memories, how amazing this controller was.
Yeah.
And it's an unusual controller. I think it still holds up actually quite well.
It does.
I don't think there was enough games that took advantage of it.
I remember after really serious gaming sessions, though, you could sometimes tip it upside down, and if you were like me and you really were intense on this stick, bits of powder would fall out from having ground off on the sides because I was so intense on my gaming. But you don't get all the stars in Mario 64 without a little bit of intensity.
Oh, look at this pile. It's just gonna fall off the side there. Oh man, and then what do we want to get into here?
Now, let's continue up with the last of the Sega hardware controllers, and really a lot based off of the analog stick design from the Saturn. I mean, if you look at them side by side, they're very similar.
Yeah.
The Dreamcast.
Yeah.
And the only major difference was that this was a stick instead of just the ball with a thumbprint in it. And these right here, which were for their visual memory unit, VMU, and you had the little window, you get little graphics
I like that
in there.
stuff, man.
I thought it was so cool.
It's cool, yeah.
It was just neat, fun little side things they did with their controller. But I always liked it, and it had the nice bright colored buttons and a good shape. Just really fun.
The Dreamcast controller is not bad. It's actually not too bad.
And
and then let's get into all the Xbox stuff. But
do you want to hit the GameCube first? Let's do that.
I like the GameCube controller.
I loved it.
It was so. This might sound stupid, futuristic looking. It's so unusual of a design, isn't it? Yeah, it really is. And it's weird. Look at all the different shapes of the buttons, so you can tell them apart.
By touch, yeah.
Yeah, and this is the little right button. Yeah, the Z button. Yeah, that's right. I don't know. I liked it.
Now, the only kind of a beef that I had with this, and it's funny, and it's not so much that it was the controller's fault. It was that the Mega Man Anniversary Collection. And remember we discussed on the 8-bit controller, A was jump and B was shoot. That was just, it's ingrained into old school gamers. But for some reason, they decided to make this giant button that says A on it, the shoot, and this little one down here, the jump. And it was completely backwards because you used to be able to, use the ball of your thumb and then tip it. No, you couldn't. No. It was the most aggravating.
Isn't that
because it made everything backwards. It was so weird. But the controller itself, I like the camera control with the second stick was really neat.
It's not bad, a little small, but I kind of prefer the PlayStation controller. At that point, but
and they of course went wireless. This is yours.
I remember I had that the Resident Evil 1 remake. And I just bought this beforehand. And I remember sitting in my room, and I had this is the wireless Waybird. And I remember just sitting and it was so amazing. I'm like, it's not attached to anything. Like all this crap. I can hit in the face, I can do this. I hit Rob in the face with nothing. It was just so cool. It was wireless. It felt wonderful. It was so. This is the way gaming is supposed to be, and this is the way it has gone since. I really like it. Well, you got a Waybird, right?
I don't actually. I never went the Waybird. I know. Insanity ensues.
How did you have a GameCube back then and not have it?
I didn't have it.
No, I'm not again.
No, I know.
It's so amazing.
I never got around to having one. I know. I should get one someday.
I thought you just kind of did.
No. I never did, and now I've blown your mind right here.
There we go.
Right here on YouTube. His mind has been blown.
My mind is blown.
The most infamous, and I'm using that word correctly, the most infamous controller in gaming history, known alternately as the Bear controller or the Duke.
The Duke.
The Duke. The biggest, most ridiculous controller. Look at this thing. It's a hand cramp waiting to happen is what this is. Look at that. This is so ridiculous. I mean, is it a wonder this thing failed in Japan? Look at the size of that controller. Someone would live in the controller slot over there. I mean, it's that big. This thing is just retarded.
I know. I know. It was way too. I remember I bought a friend's Xbox at the time, and I was playing Halo, and I was like, "Oh, this controller is like, wow, this is something else." You know, it really is something else.
It actually looks like the dropship from Metroid, kind of. Samus can pop out the middle. I mean, it's just foolish. I mean, and every time I came over here to play Xbox with you, you'd always make me use the Duke.
You did that to good friends, right?
That's what player 2 gets. You don't bring your own controller,
Get
pal.
this thing out of here.
I'm trying.
God
The
damn it.
controller squid strikes. Save me.
There you go.
Save me from it. Now, Microsoft, in their wisdom and taking in their input from the fans, decided to shrink things just a little and make the S controller, which is now the standard size.
I like this controller.
I like that a lot.
I really like it.
Not so much. Very much. Not so much.
Yeah.
Very much. This is a proper usable controller for the original Xbox.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's got a nice sticks. It's just comfortable and easy to use.
And then we I'll just blast onto it. Then we go into the 360 controller,
Which is practically the same thing.
practically the same, but
Wireless.
Wireless, yes. Like the Wavebird friend over here. And then Nintendo.
Always the innovators, in my opinion, because they went from the 8-bit to 16 with the rounded edges, the shoulder buttons, the first ones to do that. So then what did they do? And this was a big moment of contention for gamers.
We all know it was.
The Waggle Stick.
Yeah.
With this little thing that most people thought was very innovative but weren't sure about, and it has become one of the more fun controllers to use for like first-person shooting games and things.
Yeah,
Metroid Prime 3 was great being able to shoot at the screen.
Yeah, I like that too.
With the
It was different. It was unique. I think people wanted something brand new. Nintendo delivered it. It was just a different way to control the game, and
at the same time took it back to the classic if you wanted to.
Could you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously Nintendo has got their new controller out here with the analogs up here, screen here. You can take the game, with you. This is very interesting. A lot of people do not like this. I think in time we'll see a lot more games that will take advantage of this.
Yes.
I think this is very early in the Wii U's lifestyle.
The only controller on this table that's bigger than the Duke.
Now there's only one other controller that I haven't talked about. That's right here.
Bang!
And I have so much stuff on top of it, but it's the ASCII 2 keyboard controller for Phantasy Star Online, and wow, when I saw this thing, this is just the crazy time. I was like, what? This is a huge keyboard. You control it this way. I never used that. I just used the keyboard, and I had a controller separately for that. But this was a funny one from Japan, and everybody always asks me about this. I get so many messages. What the hell is a controller? What is that thing? Well, that's what it is.
The idea was so you could not have to put down the controller to type to your friends while you were doing your... Because there wasn't voice chat back then. You had to type.
Yeah. I prefer, I still like that. It was very unique. I remember when I bought Phantasy Star Online and I got that, I was like, it was such a unique thing. I had this controller, and I imported the game. I actually switched my Gamecube or whatever to play import games to play. But yeah, it was a cool little moment to enjoy that controller with. But man, we've gone through so much. This is not a history lesson, and there's so many controllers we haven't talked about. These are just some of the ones I was able to pull off the shelf, and we just want to talk about some memories of them,
yes,
and some of the things that we enjoyed about these controllers over the years. And we haven't done it yet. Here we go. I forgot. This is where we say, I say mine, Rob is going to say his, and we don't know.
So I'm looking forward to hearing this. I want you to go first.
I'll go first.
I want to know what your favorite controller out of this mound of insanity. Which one is it?
And it's a section under the bottom of the And I'm just gonna
spread them out a little so that you can find it. Please don't smash me in the face with the cord.
It's what we talked about. This controller, Sony's controller, that they've used from the PlayStation 1 up till the PlayStation 3. And even the PlayStation 4, a little bit changed and stuff like that, but the basic design hasn't changed. And I think it's because to me, it's my perfect controller. I love this controller. I think it has everything I need to control a game with in a 3D space. It's perfect. I can't say enough about it. It works for 2D games. It works for 3D games. It's got everything I need in there. So this is my favorite controller. And I thought you would say that this is your favorite controller.
I can't fault you on that either, because to be honest, that is, especially from my nostalgia over our Street Fighter years and stuff, it is one of the most comfortable and most easy to use controllers going. And it really, the design is almost flawless.
Yeah.
However, my favorite controller, for all that I haven't used it a whole lot, was a unique little piece that I picked up many years ago when I was playing the Mega Man Anniversary Collection on the PS2. And it is
He's covered it up so I can see.
The Catz Retro Con.
What?
They actually built a PS2 controller designed after the old NES style. See, because I like the old NES style, the way it sits in your hand, but they actually put the R1 and R2 buttons on the top, and you had your 4 directions, your 4 buttons that would also had like the A and B, but 4, and the little analog sticks. And this was, for the Mega Man Anniversary Collection, perfect, 'cause it was like playing it on the NES.
Oh.
And I've only ever seen a couple of them out and about, the one that I bought and
This is your favorite controller of all the controllers over the years.
It is, because it's so unique and such a strange and fun concept.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's why, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't use it a lot. I mean, if it's going to be the one that I use the most, it's either PS3 or 360, because, I mean, the PS3,
Yeah,
it is
it is.
the class. But because it's so fun, and because someone was in love enough with the 8-bit generation of controllers, like the old NES style, to make a PS2 controller like this, this is my favorite controller.
It's old school, right? Old school, that's new school, for sure.
And that's exactly why. So, in my case, that was it.
Interesting.
The
Love
Catz
it.
Retro Con.
So guys, this is your chance now to tell everybody, tell us, what is your favorite controller of all time? Make a video response, leave a comment below. We'd love to hear it. So anyways, guys, until next time.